Okay, so to be consistent, I will tell you guys that I just got
Okay, so to be consistent, I will tell you guys that
I just got a warning from Facebook to say that um I don't know if they got a complaint about me or what, but they said that that my daily things goes against their community standards and that would be considered spam, and they would consider shutting my account down, which, what the heck? Spam? Oh my goodness. And one of the things that I was told before is that it's hard to fight Facebook once they make a determination about something. And but I just disagreed with their assessment. And I'm not sure if I received a complaint. You guys, oh my goodness. Um, hmm. Well, I will tell you just in case anything happens to my Facebook feed. You guys, I will be on. I will still continue to do this, but it will just be on my other platforms. Um, what can I say? Good morning. Good morning. And yeah, I need to figure out how to go about um, building my case because that's interesting. Mm, that's interesting. Good morning. Good morning. And I am. That threw me for a loop. That is a loop. Um, interesting. 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 So, hey, I am greeting you guys from a snowy, well, I shouldn't say snowy. It is right here in Cleveland, Ohio. We had a cold front come through, and that cold front, yeah, it just dropped a lot of wind and some snow, not a lot. Not, it is amazing to me when we talk about global warming. And here in Cleveland, this has been while we love it being such a mild winter, it is also daunting and from my perspective, in how I see it, when we think about the idea of what it means, global warming and the earth cooling, even if it's only a couple of degrees, it is changing our ecosystem. And so, whereas here in Cleveland, we have always had plenty of snow and cold temperatures, we have been and have had more 40, 50 degree days than is common for this time of year. So it does have me, to some degree, with a certain level of concern. But, you know, just being conscious about my own carbon footprint and exactly what I do. And I know that there are people out there that are, you know, much more vocal and persuasive when it comes down to the things that we do. I will say that I do share concern, but at the same time, I long for sunshine and blue skies all the time. So anyway, I that is really I'm glad to be here. It's Friday. It is Friday, and and welcome to Friday. Welcome to the beginning of another weekend. And I am always amazed at how quickly, I will say it that way, how quickly these weeks go by. It just seems like just the other day I was saying it's Friday, a Friday is when he would say. But I'm really like, yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, man, it's here again. It's here again. It's here again. So, um, yeah, it is. This is it's wonderful to for those of you who are really concerned about it being the weekend. Welcome to the weekend. So, I'm thrilled to be here, you guys. I will tell you that I am that whole thing threw me for a loop, and just kind of I need to move through this and figure out what it is that I need to do so that yeah, so that because I do have a lot of content up on Facebook, and really concerned about the content that I have, as would you, if I'm sure anybody who puts as much time and its effort into anything as I do. I hope that you value your work and what you've shared enough to want to protect it. And even if others don't have the same type of value that they place on your work as you do, um, it is, it's, yeah. So I am not a victim of the world I see. I am not. I am not. I am not. So I'm just coming into this moment in my usual with love and gratitude for what I have been able to accomplish. And I'm going to keep it moving from there. So hey. Oh my gosh, I got so much on my mind. But that kind of like was out of the blue, a shift. And so let me do my usual and go from there. Let's see what I can see from here. Okay, so let's see. Okay. I wonder what post that, if they were talking about a particular post or what. Hmm. Haha. Interesting. Okay, so here we go. Let's do our meditation, or our daily reading from for today. And after I do this, then I will get into my talk and go from there. So this one is for today. And I didn't even notice the number of this day and whatever relevance that might have for some people. Joel Goldsmith is who she takes her first quote from. These readings are from Dr. Marilyn Louise Leo. And so we'll share with this and then go on from there. This is taken from The Infinite Way, the first quote, and that is from Joel Goldsmith. And it says true prayer or meditation is not thinking about ourselves or our problems, but rather a contemplation of God and God activities, the nature of God and the nature of the world that God created. True prayer or meditation is not thinking about ourselves or our problems, but a contemplation of God and God activity. Okay, so from Ernest Holmes, it is that what he wrote is a prayer is a movement of thought within the mind of the one praying along a definite line of meditation that is for a specific purpose. Good morning, Tracy. How are you? God, good morning. Good morning. How are you, darling? Okay, so that was taken from Ernest Holmes. So here she goes on to write, Dr. Leo. She writes, Holmes' communion with God brings harmony into our lives and affairs, establishes the law of health and prosperity, and makes us a light to all who cross our pathway. Meditation is a quieting of our mind where only peace, harmony, beauty, and joy can reside. It is often a time when ideas flow, answers to our questions may be found, and special gifts are given, waiting to be received. Let's practice meditation today, she says. Begin with just 10 minutes at a set time each day. Be still and allow the silence of infinite possibilities to sweep over you. If you find it easiest to focus on an object, a flower works best for her. Be still and become part of the flower. See yourself in the bloom. This is a beginning, she says. Prayer is a focused contemplation on what we want to experience. In prayer, we bring about an activity in our mind that we understand to be in the mind of God, and therefore must develop into a response and a demonstration. We acquire a knowing within that our highest good is becoming reality. She goes on to say, when we are troubled by something, think of the opposite. Fear, courage, limitations, unlimited, power, and so on. If it is a desire for a loving relationship, affirm the beauty and joy in yourself, for who you are attracts the same likeness. Always seek the end result of your desire, and yet be open to the limitless possibilities. If your desire is sincere and the greatest good for you and harms no one, listen for your guidance. The law of nature is waiting for your command and act. Command to act. The affirmation that she puts with this is I am so grateful for this day. I attract into my life all the wonders of love, joy, beauty, and kindness. Okay, so I will say I don't have much to say about that. See yourself as a bloom. I don't have much to say about Dr. Leo's meditation or daily guide on that. One of the things that I do try to be mindful of is I'm very opinionated. I am. And what I do is I try not to tell people what they should do or how they should think, but rather share my own opinions with folks. And then you get to decide what works for you and what doesn't. Sometimes I'm sure you will agree with me, and sometimes I'm sure you will be like, that girl is off the rocker, right? And to some extent, that is what my hope and my expectation is. My hope is that I come on here and I stir up things for you. Not that I tell you what it is that you should do or think or anything like that. Let me be a person who stirs things up. So when I am in the mode of, trying to stir up or cultivate some type of thought around something, around some particular thing, I might, just like when I do my interviews with people, I think Dr. Brown alluded to this yesterday, is I talk about first my way of seeing a particular thing before I then ask, so what do you think? Conversation is interesting to me because a lot of times we have not, I mean, I may be just speaking for myself, but we have not cultivated the art of conversation. I have often been in environments where people make speeches, uh, whether you're talking on a telephone or out in public, you'll hear people say, I couldn't get in a word edgewise, right? Because they feel as if sometimes people are so consumed and busy with their own thoughts that they never make room for anybody else's. Well, it's my desire to just stir up thought and then to maybe perhaps have you consider what it is that you think or how you feel about it. Of course, in this venue, it is not that people are having conversation with me, but I am open to reading whatever your comments are and responding to those. And so in here it is, there is this, that's the desire for me to have this platform where I can share information, talk about the things that seems to me relevant to a day and how it lands on me, and then to move on or to listen and to evaluate later if it is something that I'm still how I feel about it later. And that's something that I do all the time. I think I'm very reflective and introspective about what I share. And if for some reason I find something is inconsistent with the love that I am, that I feel I am sharing with others, then, by all means, by all means, let's converse about it. But yeah, this idea of now being put in sanctioned, but for things that I say or have said is really interesting. It goes against also how I talk about my guiding principles: to be bold, to be free, and to, above all else, be truthful. And so if I feel as if I am, that I need to censor, um, that's not a natural censor for me, because I'm not a person that curses. I'm not a person that hates or fear mongers. That is not me at all. And so when I have people that are talking about or that feel as if I'm doing that, then the question will, that draws me to certain questions. I am constantly saying to people that you don't see people as they are, you see them as you are. And so if it stirs up something in you, then maybe the question is, wonder why I've got that, wonder why, what's that about? And then ask yourself how often that comes up for you. Because for so many people, the thought may never cross your mind, right? That may never cross their mind. Oh, she's done something, or she's offended me, or something or other. It may never cross a person's mind. But if it is something that is sensitive to you for whatever reason, because it triggers something in you, it doesn't mean that the intent was one that was bad. And so part of the intention here is merely to stimulate thought. So to that end, you guys, this is, believe it or not, this is Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. They are celebrating it this weekend, which is earlier than most of the time than we have been celebrating it. And I don't know if it is because of the day that it falls on, but it usually seems like it falls around the 21st or something like that. But this weekend is Martin Luther King weekend. And so yesterday, I did talk a bit about on the program with Dr. Brown. I did talk about both Malcolm X as well as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And so through that, I wonder if that is what I'm being sanctioned for, or being, if that's what's happening. I don't know, but we'll see what that is. And it's really interesting. That's really fascinating to me. So we'll see. We'll play the wait and see game and see what is happening with that. So it is Martin Luther King Jr.'s weekend, and I will tell you guys that there is so much about his work that motivates me and has motivated me over time. And the motivation comes out of a deep respect for speaking truth to power, so to speak. When we have these, when we take on the awareness that, there were certain things that he was talking about, speaking out against, not just the ideas around the civil rights era, but also around a war on poverty, capitalism, war machine, all of those things. And they were things that he talked about in his book, Community or Chaos. When I read the book, Community or Chaos, I was so moved by so many of the things that he brought to the awareness of all of those that may have read the book. Where do we go? Do we go into chaos, or do we go into community? And one of the things that I read somewhere is that the idea of creating chaos automatically then at some point brings about order. Because one of the things that Dr. King said is that there is an arc to this universe, and that arc bends towards justice, or it bends towards correction. And so when we look at things, no matter what we're looking at, if we're looking at this idea of global warming, which is what I started out with, or if we're looking within ourselves, there is this hopefully arc towards correction. Good morning, Val. How are you, darling? Sissy. It's good to see you. I think I was supposed to call you last night. But anyway, but there's this arc, and it bends towards correction. And everywhere we look, we see this shift towards things correcting ourselves. If we look at our body and how our systems work in our body, they are meant to heal. They are meant to heal. I know sometimes we don't think about it in those regards. Yesterday, as I talked to Dr. Brown, we talked about the ways in which the body needs help sometimes with the healing thing, because sometimes the toxicity builds up to a certain point and there needs to be something that offsets that, because just doing the normal everyday things may not cause it to correct itself. So say for instance, like you know, so many people will, garlic is a natural antibiotic. Let me just put it like that. Garlic is a natural antibiotic, but just eating a single clove of garlic is not necessarily going to cure something that has been raging for a while. And so sometimes you need something that offsets the issues that have already occurred. And so by offsetting that, or by giving us, say for instance, if you are taking medication, if you just take a single clove of garlic, that may not help. But maybe if you can concentrate that down into getting 10 cloves of garlic into a little pill, or into something that is more manageable, it might have a chance to offset the damage that has been done. Well, the same thing we see that happens within our bodies, that we have natural white blood cells that are attacking the bad blood cells, and those things are doing what they are supposed to do in order to it's our natural what do you call that, it's a natural way that our body reacts to attackers. The same thing that happens everywhere in everything. That there is, you know, when something runs amok or when something goes awry, there seems to be something within the environment that then will seek to self-correct. And that self-correction can look like any number of things. We see forest fires, and a lot of times people talk about forest fires as a way that is natural, that that keeps things in check in the natural environment. I don't know how true that is, but to some degree, I've seen things that talk about that nature has a natural way of letting off stuff, letting off steam, if it is through volcanoes, or if it is an earthquake, or if it is, the process of rain. All of these things are corrective measures that is used by nature in order to make the changes. So everything has built into it its own corrective mechanisms. And a lot of times what we do is we assume through our judgments or through other things that we know better. We try to make it be the way we think it ought to be, rather than to be in acceptance, or to stand in acceptance of the way that it is. And so when Dr. King started talking about this chaos, some people might say that out of chaos comes order, right? And so when he asked the question, community or chaos, I think that it is something that we can all reflect upon and see what nuggets of truth are in there for us. Where do you fall down on that? Do you tend towards allowing things to go to their natural end, which is what happens in our bodies sometimes if you don't intervene and do something about an abscess, or if you don't do something about clogs or other things that go on. Sometimes there is a natural outcome that happens. All the time there's a natural outcome that happens because the system tends to correct itself. And so where do we come down on that? And when he asked the question, community or chaos, I thought to myself, I want to be in the section that is about creating community. And what does that look like? What does that look like for each one of us? When we ask ourselves the questions about about this, where do we fall in that? So Um, so I love that whole type of that thought system. And as I think about Dr. King and celebrating his dream, the question is not where do I go in order to celebrate it, but what do I do? What do I do? What do my actions do? What is it that I need do? And so for each and every one of us, what are you doing? What do you do? Because there is an action, not just a an observation, but there is an action that ought to, like, not to say you ought to, but there is an action, it seems like, that is a natural outgrowth of our concern. And don't get me wrong, I have been one that, I've run away from stuff just like everybody else does. But, at every moment we're making choices and we get to choose. We get to turn around and say, oh, you know what? I'm not running. I'm not running from this. I'm not standing down on this. Or you get to whatever it is that you choose to do. So all of those things are interesting to me. Okay, so you guys, it's really interesting. I've had a fascinating week. Fascinating in that after tripping over or stumbling into a crime scene, I had an amazing, the whole release of that was really interesting, the process that I went through. I went to yoga again last night, and it's so interesting to me anyway. When I walked into the room last night, there was a man that was teaching the class, a man that I don't recall ever taking a class from. And got in, and at first I was thinking to myself, like, this guy, whatever, he's gonna, who knows what he was gonna be like. But I decided, of course, I'm there, I make my trip there to take yoga. And so I just surrender, right? I don't know how often, we allow ourselves to surrender. How often do you allow yourself to surrender to a situation, to a person, to a conversation, to things that happen on your job? There is so much energy put into resistance all the time. And I sometimes wonder about, even for me, where did I get this level of resistance from? Sometimes it is remember I've been talking about judgment. Sometimes it's the judgment that comes up in mind to say, you know what, I don't know that this is going. I mean, even before things happen, we get caught up in judging. Somebody says, oh, we're in for winter weather or winter weather advisory, and all of a sudden we start getting bent out of shape about, oh, there's snow coming, and rather than just seeing what happens, right? Sometimes we're standing in resistance to things that, I don't even know that it's worth the effort of resisting, because what is. I mean, if you just think about it for a minute, I may sit up and think about, oh my gosh, I don't necessarily want the rain and then the snow and then the freezing and all of that stuff. It just seems like, but standing in resistance to it does me no good, right? If I walk into a class, or if I go into a job, or if I do sometimes when we stand in resistance to things, we create our struggle for ourselves. I mean, if you think about it, when I do my push-ups in the morning, it is me pushing off of my own weight. It's sometimes that builds the muscle, because I'm using my weight as the resistance. I'm resisting with my own weight and not necessarily with something else. So the idea of resistance is interesting. It says, in so many teachings, what you resist persists. If you think about what you resist persists, whether we're talking about it on a mental level or a physical level or whatever level, if what we resist persists because we're resisting it, is it that we're building musculature that we want, or are we actually calling forth something that we do not want? So say, for instance, if I, there was such a blessing in it for me last night. When I walked into the room, I see this guy up there, and I'm thinking to myself, this is a yoga teacher I have not encountered before, but let me surrender. Let me get on the mat and let me do what it is that I do. Let me be a part of the class. And even as he started setting the class up, I was thinking to myself, I had this resistance up. I was resisting. I had it up. And I had thoughts going in my mind about every little session, like, oh, here's a good example. Like, man, he talks too much. We just tell us what we're doing. Like, tell me to sit or to stand or to, or to stretch or to twist or whatever. He's talking. And I listened. But I still had the thought in my mind, why is this dude talking so much? So I'm okay, I'm gonna go with it. Right. So he talks, and then he tells us, he says, as he kind of keeps talking, he says, now I want you to get into child's pose, and I'm going to affirm some stuff. And I was thinking to myself, affirm some stuff? What? And so I get down in the child's pose because I'm surrendered, right? I get down in the child's pose, and then I listen to what he's saying. And all I could say, my soul was saying yes, right? When he started speaking words of affirmation and encouragement over it, my soul started saying yes. And I was like, okay. And then he tells me to, to get into the next position. And I'm still thinking to myself, okay, I will tell y'all, when this brother started, with the, do this and do that, leg up over here, this, that, and the other, I was sweating. I was struggling with the positions. I was in all of that. But my soul was just saying, yes. I was tickled and laughing as I was trying to hold the downward dog, as I was trying to do the things that he was saying. And it was so hard, and I was so in yes mode. And so what I recognized through going through the, the positions and through the sweating, and then I was like, okay, I want to get in this. I want to grunt. I want to say yes. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I just felt this amazing release that came through allowing somebody else to lead. Here's what it popped into my mind. I don't know if you've ever done this, but I have gone slow dancing with people, and guys have told me, would you let me lead? And I sit there thinking to myself, like, no, I ain't letting you lead. I don't know if anybody else does that, but sometimes it just seems like, well, you know what? How you gonna lead and you trying to do it that way? I don't want to do it that way. I want to do 1, 2, 3, 1, this, 2, 2, 2, 2. I got. How are you slow dancing? And so and so this whole idea of not being able to follow was a thing for me. And it's sometimes in situations, not being able to follow is a thing. And so whether we're talking about dancing with a dance partner, or conversation and conversing with people. If we're talking about yoga and positioning, we can talk about our jobs and being able to follow in that respect. But sometimes we're so caught in our resistance and our judgment even before we have the full picture. As a matter of fact, I know that there have been times where I want to say that I need to understand. When I was at when I first started going to a New Thought church, they wanted us to say affirmations and, repeat after me. And for me, I wanted to hear the whole thing before I let anything come out of my mouth, because what was coming out of my mouth was so valuable for me. I put so much emphasis into it. I always talk about out of our mouths comes the issues of our life. I'm looking at, if I'm speaking something, speak something is creative. I don't want to just, read anything or say anything that is given to me. I want to see if it is consistent with what I believe. And if it's not, it's not coming through me. And it's not even this idea that, if I read it is one, if I read it and I'm reading it for comprehension. But now if it comes out of my mouth, and that's one of the reasons too why you hear me, even as I read my daily guides, I'm saying she says. I don't want you to take it that these are my words all the time. I want to accredit them to who it is that they go to, because I don't always, this idea, I gotta just okay, what is it that I think and believe? Right? And so I know everybody does not have that kind of hang up, but for me, I'm looking at it for me, when God spoke and said, let there be, and created and said that I am in the same, made in the same image and consciousness, and I got the same power. I got let there be power in my words. Tracy says not being able to receive is also an issue for many people. Also part of surrendering. Yes. Oh my gosh, Tracy, that is so true. There is we have so many of us, and I don't know if this comes from through trauma or through whatever else, but there are so many of us that just simply cannot relax and trust the process. And so I was in resistance when I walked into the room. I was into resistance for for the first 15 minutes, and then my soul started saying yes. And then I went through and I did, and I moved and I celebrated, and I was just I was so excited about it by the time I finished. And I was like, dude, I want to come back when you're teaching again, because now I could see the blessing that was there. And I could say, wow, ooh, that was good. It was good. As a matter of fact, one of the, I love all of the instructors. I think Kimberly runs such an amazing organization, My Village Yoga. She just an amazing piece, and I have been so blessed by all the teachers. But according to who's in the room, you kind of know if you're going to, whether you're going to really about to work up a sweat or if you're about to just kind of okay, there's a body awareness and some movements that you're just aware of your body and not necessarily really challenging it and saying, what, boom, boom, boom. So, So I have a tendency to just trust the process, period. But yeah, there's this thing of like, instead of, I could have, you're just thinking like, who is this, right? Who is it? And then there have been times then I have gone to yoga, and because of whatever body consciousness or whatever, felt with some teachers that it's just like, that is just too intense or too something for me. I don't know what that is, but I felt resistance in different areas because of it and still move through it. So that's what I try to do, is surrender when I'm on the mat. And so for so many of us, that becomes a part of the life lessons that we have to learn, how to be in a space of of surrender. Like, let's see, let's move through this and see what happens, right? And yeah, because the resistance, if you stand in resistance all the time and say what you resist persists, if you're always in resistance mode, how do you get where you need to go? One of the things that Jesus said that was so profound in the Bible was resist not evil, right? And you think to yourself sometimes, what is it that we perceive as evil, right? Sometimes we have the perception of things being evil that are not that. To talk about or say certain words are not inherently evil, unless, of course, sometimes we take them out of context. People will take things out of context by the mere mention of certain things. And so we've got to see things for the fullness that is there, instead of just assuming that we need to automatically resist when somebody says, boo, right? We have to figure out what it is that is egregious or objectionable to us, right? Without just being fearful because we think it has gone against something. The Somebody was talking about this idea of, so many people have received information erroneously from ministers. I believe that will tell, and they start to talk about the things that they think are evil. Like, I've been told people will say stuff like meditation. Something is wrong with meditation, or something is wrong with affirmations, or something is wrong with astrology, or something is wrong with this, that, and the other, right? You hear all types of ideas that people have maligned for their own purpose. But when you look closely at it, when you take a second look at it, what we know is that, some of the stuff that people perceive as evil is not evil at all. As a matter of fact, it is in alignment with what Jesus has taught. I mean, even this idea of three wise men that looked up and saw a star in the sky and knew that, Christ was born, was following after the stars. So how could people who follow after the stars be inherently evil? It becomes a question that I think any and all of us have to ask. When you think about the natural course of a day, right? Right now, during this time of year, night, the time of darkness exceeds, where I am, is exceeding the time of light. So if before electricity was created, people would have been, or the light bulb, whatever, people would have been in darkness from 5 p.m. on a given night up until 7, 8 a.m. the next day. When you think about the bulk of them sitting in the darkness, and the only thing that they have to see is by the stars that are up in the sky, and maybe some fire or maybe some flames, but that is basically what they're looking at. How can it be considered? How can we see that as evil? So a lot of times we have to question even the information that we've been given and see for ourselves if it, what is it, if it holds water, so to speak, if it's sound. When you think about some of the things, it is not just another person's interpretation of it, but how do I look at this and draw some natural conclusions out of what I'm seeing? In our society, there are so many people who have been taught not to think. They've been challenged not to think. And so at a certain point, we've got to think about even that, right? We've got to think about how we engage with ideas, how we accept the ideas and the opinions of others without first running it through our own thought process. When I say thought process, that's not what you heard from somebody else. That means that let me take this and given what I know here, and here's the beauty, I think, too, of of what I've learned in my lifetime. When I say there are no accidents, that means that there was purpose to, in the first grade, reading See Jane Run, right? There was purpose when I read Dear God Is Me. What was that girl's name? Judy. There was purpose when I read Catcher in the Rye. There was purpose when I read Merleau-Ponty. There was purpose when I went to Italy. When we start taking and recognizing, Margaret, it's me, Margaret. Yes, thank you. There's purpose. Judy Blume, I think, was the author. Maybe that's what it is. There was purpose to each and every one of these instances and how it fits into our lives. So if we look at it and not assume that this was just like happenstance, right? Good morning, Sandra. Thank you. When we look at this and we see that it's not just happenstance, but all of this is a part of who we become, then it doesn't mean that I need to abandon what I've already known. And y'all, when I talk about the wonderfulness of watching Slumdog Millionaire and how it illustrates this, because what we saw was somebody coming from out of abject poverty and out of a condition and going through and growing through all of this stuff just so that he can get to this point where he's on a game show, and now he's pulling back from all of the information and knowledge that he has received through the course of his life in order to be in that place now. Our lives are just like that. The things that you have been through are not accidental. The things that you have been through have been on purpose, and they are there to show you something. So they are not to be negated or aborted just because somebody else comes in and then starts to tell you how you ought to think or what you should think or whatever else. You've got to pull on what you already know, because those things are divinely inspired and planted there whether or not you know it or not. So even me as I was younger, learning how to follow somebody when I'm slow dancing. And even the musical chairs game or the pin the tail on the donkey game, those things had significance and meaning. Even Donna's Dead, when I played Donna's Dead, how she died? Oh, she died like this, right? All of that, red light, green light, the games that we play, Ring Around the Rosie, they all had meaning and resonance. But just because we didn't understand them at the time doesn't mean that they don't have something to tell us today. So you have an intelligence that is all your own, that is tailor-made, a curriculum that is a highly individualized curriculum meant just for you. The arguments that you witnessed, the times when even the thoughts about things. I have been in situations where I get to choose for myself who I'm going to be, based on how I've felt about what I've seen other people do. Go into a store and somebody gives you the wrong change, either too much or too little. And what do? What's your words? What do you say? How do you show up in that, right? And when I never forget, I gave the money back. I said, "Oh, you gave me too much," right? Because you gave me too much. And what's the woman is like saying, "Oh, see, she's honest." And I'm thinking, what the hell? Right? That was my thought. What? Why would you think otherwise, right? First off, I'm really protecting me. Because it's me that bears the repercussions, bears the karmic trail of what I've done, right? I'm not because I'm concerned whether or not you perceive me as honest, but because I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this for me because there's a karmic cost to what I do. I don't care about what you think about it, right? And so a lot of times people modify their behavior according to who's looking, according to whether or not people are in agreement. Your life has been a highly individualized curriculum meant just for you. And you have to answer for what it is that you do or have done. You bear the consequences of that, not anybody else. And so when you start thinking about it from that vantage point, hopefully you will learn, if you don't already. I know most of you already do, but how to honor your own walk, how to honor where you come in, where you fit into this scenario. Because it's not about, sometimes we make it seem like it's about all of those other, it's really about honoring your own light, the way that you came here to be, to do, right? I'm this idea of and I talk often about this idea of being, whether I'm a good girl or a bad girl. That is an external judgment. And I shake one of them, I want to shake that off, right? This whole idea of being externally driven. What do I think about me? What do I think about me? What do you think about you? And how do you reconcile that? If you've got judgment on yourself, how do you then reconcile that? Whatever that may mean. And so I don't have your answers, but what I'm hoping it is that at a certain point, the idea just came to me that sometimes when we're falling, because maybe we spend a lot of our life falling forward, right? And if we don't quit, And eventually our legs will come up under us, right? Sometimes people just fall directly on their face. But then once you get up, you stand up strong, right? Sometimes you're falling and when you lean into a fall, sometimes you stand upright. That's been my experience anyway. Stumble forward only to stand up straighter. So, it's going through that process. Hopefully, at some point, you catch up to yourself. You may have had a period where you were not in a space of self-acceptance, where you were not in a space of love. But hopefully, by the time you get to a certain point in your life, you begin to accept all of the things, all those bastard parts of yourself that you were throwing away. All of a sudden you look over there and say, "Oh, girl, come here," right? "Oh, come on." I may have thought that at one time, but come on, right? Yeah, how silly we were. How silly was I to think otherwise? How silly was I? How silly was I to believe the stuff? And there's a part of us, I think that there's a part of us when people tell us some of the stuff that they do, there's a part of us that knows that there is got to be some untruth in it, right? There's got to be a part of us that knows this. We are social beings. We are loving beings. There is something that enlivens us. With whether it's affection or touch or attention or whatever it is, there is something about us that is lifted through that experience. And so when people tell you that, you need to stay away from this and you need to not do that and blah, 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 they tell you all of this stuff, but there's something in you that knows that ain't quite right. Is that, you got, sometimes it's like, knows that it's not quite right. And so, in those instances, we've got to have the courage to push back and say, "You know what, let me find out for myself." That's what I used to do with my mother. I told y'all that the other day. I'd tell my mother, "Yeah, you told me experience is the best teacher. Let me experience this for myself." Hey, Larry. I'm assuming that's Larry Fields, right? Thank you. Good morning to you. I know it says LR, but I'm assuming that's Larry. So, yeah, I just think that, at a certain point, we've been lit so much, right? Gaslit so much. And gaslighting is the undermining of your own thinking. Other people undermine your thinking so much so that you begin to question, am I really intelligent? Am I really? Trust yourself. Trust your instincts, right? And a lot of people will put in this added disclaimer, as long as it doesn't harm anybody else. Well, sometimes I will say to you that everybody does not always come out of things unscathed. But it doesn't mean that harm was done. Let me give you an example of that. Let me see. Oh, I could tell y'all about some relationships that I've had. Oh, and it felt like my heart was ripped out. But the experience was one that grew me. And if we don't resist, if you think about it, I'm always giving examples about nature and exercise. If you think about it, there are a lot of things. Hey, Bill, good morning. There are a lot of things that are meant to, or it seems to stretch you, and sometimes seems to hurt you. When I do those push-ups in the morning, it ain't fun, but it's for a purpose. They develop me, right? When I get into a relationship and it doesn't work out, it's something that I'm getting from it. It develops me. It gives me this musculature that I needed. Sometimes people, sometimes we do get hurt through things. I often say that, if Judas wasn't present, the resurrection might, the whole death part might not have happened, so that the resurrection could happen. There are things that we got to just kind of like say, let's see. I want to tell a story about that, because there was a really good story about a farmer who, people were always, giving him the thing, saying, wow, you're so lucky this. And he was like, maybe not. Time will tell. Oh, you got this wonderful horse. Yeah, maybe time will tell, right? You got this son. Maybe time will tell. Son gets thrown off the horse, gets his leg broke. Oh man, what a terrible horse. Oh, maybe time will tell. Son doesn't have to go into the military. He gets passed over to be recruited. Oh man, how lucky is that? Maybe not. What it was saying is that, just because it looks good or looks bad doesn't mean that it will end up that way. Only time will tell. And so we've got to just don't get stuck resisting, because what you resist persists. Learn how to just, equanimity, equanimous, right? All things equal. Just sit in a space of, let's see, time will tell. We don't know. Time will tell. All things are working for your good. I'm claiming it now. Just like our yoga instructor was speaking words over me yesterday. All things are working for your good. Time will tell. No matter what it is that you think is going on, all things are working for your good. I thank you for being here with me today. Whether you got this on Facebook or YouTube, I thank you. I thank you for your presence. I'm sending love and blessings to each one of you, knowing that you are going to have a fabulous Friday. And even with this cold front that has moved through, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I'm wishing the highest and best for you. Hey Kathy, how are you, darling? All right, so I'm out of here for today, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Saturday is another free flow Saturday, and I'm looking forward to you having a fabulous weekend. All right, blessings, love and blessings. See ya. I am off of here. Let me go see what all this run amok is about. Bye. All right, and I am off of here as well. And someday, this will be easier. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you have comments, please, by all means, share. But if you hit that bell when you subscribe, it'll let you know when I'm on. I'm always on in early morning, 8 a.m. ish, Eastern Standard Time.